Winnie-the-Pooh, a bear of very little brain, has a simple philosophy in life. He loves honey. One fine day, Pooh is wandering through the 100-acre wood when he suddenly feels a rumble in his tummy. Realizing that he is hungry, Pooh's first thought is, of course, honey. But where can he find some? Pooh recalls a honey tree he has seen before, tall and filled with bees buzzing around, surely guarding their precious honey. Determined to get some, Pooh tries climbing the tree, but he is not a very skillful climber. He slips and falls multiple times, getting more and more frustrated, until he eventually gives up on trying to reach the honey this way. Not one to be discouraged, Pooh hatches a new plan. He visits his friend Christopher Robin and borrows a blue balloon under the guise of wanting to have fun with it. His real plan is to float up to the top of the tree and disguise himself as a small black cloud to fool the bees. Christopher Robin, always willing to go along with Pooh's adventures, helps his friend by holding onto the string as Pooh floats up. But the bees, who are not easily fooled, quickly realize that Pooh is not a cloud but a hungry bear. Chaos ensues as the bees swarm around Pooh, and Christopher Robin has to help him back down. Despite his efforts, Pooh doesn't get any honey this time, but his unshakable optimism leaves him ready for the next adventure. Chapter 2. Pooh visits Rabbit and gets stuck. In this chapter, Pooh decides to visit his friend Rabbit, who lives in a cozy burrow underground. Pooh, always thinking about food, hopes that Rabbit might offer him something to eat. Sure enough, Rabbit welcomes Pooh in and offers him a generous helping of honey. Pooh, not one to say no to a snack, eats and eats until he can barely move. After finishing the meal, Pooh thanks Rabbit and tries to leave through the same small hole he entered. But to his dismay, he finds that he has eaten too much and is now too fat to fit through the door. Stuck halfway in and halfway out of Rabbit's house, Pooh is quite embarrassed, and Rabbit is not too pleased either. They try pulling him out, but Pooh is wedged in too tightly. Christopher Robin is called in to assess the situation, and he suggests that they wait for Pooh to lose weight by not feeding him for a few days. Rabbit, always practical, makes the best of the situation by using Pooh's back legs as a towel rack while they wait. Eventually, after several days of hunger, Pooh slims down enough to be pulled free. His friends celebrate, and Pooh, now thinner, quickly forgets the ordeal as his mind turns back to thoughts of honey. Chapter 3. Eeyore loses a tail. Eeyore, the gloomy and pessimistic donkey, is feeling especially down when he realizes that his tail is missing. In true Eeyore fashion, he doesn't get upset, but instead quietly resigns himself to the fact that life is just full of disappointments. Pooh, ever the good friend, volunteers to help Eeyore find his missing tail. They search high and low throughout the 100-acre wood, but the tail is nowhere to be found. Along the way, Pooh seeks advice from Owl, who is known for his wisdom, but Owl doesn't have much helpful information. Eventually, Pooh stumbles upon Owl's house and notices something peculiar. Owl has been using Eeyore's tail as a bell pull by the door. When Pooh points this out, Owl is surprised, as he hadn't realized what the rope actually was. Pooh quickly takes the tail back to Eeyore, and with Christopher Robin's help, they reattach the tail. Eeyore, although still as melancholy as ever, is grateful for his friend's efforts. The chapter highlights the bond of friendship between the animals, even though their personalities are so different. Chapter 4. Piglet and the Heffalump Trap. Piglet, a small and timid creature, often gets caught up in adventures that are bigger than he is. In this chapter, Pooh and Piglet decide to set a trap for a heffalump, a mythical creature they have never seen but are quite certain exists. Pooh, being the brains of the operation, or so he believes, suggests digging a large hole and leaving a jar of honey as bait. The two friends dig the hole and leave the honey, sure that they will catch a heffalump by morning. That night, Pooh, feeling peckish, wakes up and decides to sneak a midnight snack. He makes his way to the heffalump trap, intending to eat just a little of the honey. However, things don't go as planned, and Pooh ends up with his head stuck in the jar. In the morning, Piglet finds him stuck in the hole, with his head still trapped in the honey jar. At first, Piglet is terrified, thinking that the heffalump has finally been caught. But when Pooh's muffled voice reassures him, Piglet is relieved and helps Pooh out of the trap. Despite their failure to catch a heffalump, the adventure only strengthens their friendship. Chapter 5. Eeyore's Birthday. It's Eeyore's birthday, but no one seems to remember. The poor donkey is feeling even more gloomy than usual as he wanders the 100-acre wood, convinced that no one cares about him. However, Pooh and Piglet do eventually find out, and they rush to find gifts for their friend. Pooh, ever the lover of honey, decides to give Eeyore a jar of honey as a present. On the way to Eeyore, however, Pooh gets hungry and accidentally eats all the honey. Embarrassed, but still determined to give Eeyore something, Pooh presents the empty jar as his gift. Meanwhile, Piglet decides to give Eeyore a bright red balloon as a present. But Piglet, in his excitement, trips and accidentally bursts the balloon before he can give it to Eeyore. When the two friends finally meet Eeyore, they explain what happened, and Eeyore, surprisingly, is touched by their efforts. He finds that the empty jar is the perfect place to keep his popped balloon, and he is genuinely happy with the thoughtful, albeit unusual gifts. The chapter highlights the importance of thoughtfulness and friendship over material gifts. Chapter 6. Kanga, Roo, and Tigger arrive in the forest. New arrivals in the 100-acre wood cause a stir among the usual residents. Kanga, a motherly kangaroo, moves in with her energetic young son, Roo. At first, the other animals are wary of Kanga, who seems so different from them. Rabbit, in particular, is suspicious and hatches a plan to kidnap Roo in order to get closer to Kanga and figure out what she's all about. The kidnapping, however, doesn't go quite as planned, and Kanga soon catches on to what's happening. Instead of being angry, she plays along with the plan and eventually wins the trust of the other animals. Shortly after Kanga and Roo's arrival, Tigger, a bouncy and exuberant tiger, also joins the group. Tigger is full of energy and quickly becomes known for his constant bouncing. Although his enthusiasm is infectious, it sometimes gets on Rabbit's nerves, and the others find themselves trying to keep up with Tigger's antics. Despite this, Tigger's arrival brings new excitement to the 100-acre wood, and the other animals soon come to love him. Chapter 7. Tigger's Bounce. Tigger's boundless energy and love for bouncing are on full display in this chapter. Tigger's bouncing is fun for him, but not everyone in the 100-acre wood feels the same way. Rabbit, in particular, finds Tigger's constant bouncing to be a nuisance and decides to teach Tigger a lesson. Rabbit enlists Pooh and Piglet in a plan to take Tigger deep into the forest and leave him there for a while, hoping that getting lost will make Tigger less eager to bounce around all the time. The plan goes awry, however, when Rabbit, Pooh, and Piglet end up getting lost themselves. As they wander through the forest, trying to find their way home, they realize that Tigger is nowhere to be found. Just when they are starting to worry, Tigger suddenly appears, full of his usual energy, and leads them back to safety. Tigger's exuberant personality may sometimes cause trouble, but in the end, his bouncing saves the day. Chapter 8. A Search for Small. Pooh and Piglet's curiosity leads them into another adventure in this chapter, as they embark on a quest to find a creature called Small. The search begins innocently enough when Pooh and Piglet notice some mysterious tracks in the snow. Convinced that the tracks belong to Small, they follow them eagerly, hoping to uncover a great discovery. As they walk, however, they begin to notice more and more sets of tracks, and their excitement turns into confusion. Eventually, they realize that they have been walking in circles, and the tracks they have been following are their own. The misunderstanding is a classic example of Pooh and Piglet's playful innocence and how their adventures often lead them back to where they started. Despite not finding Small, they return home content, having enjoyed the thrill of the chase and each other's company. Chapter 9. Eeyore's House. Eeyore, feeling particularly down one day, decides to build himself a new house. The other animals in the 100-acre wood, especially Pooh and Piglet, take it upon themselves to help out. However, as is often the case with their well-meaning efforts, things don't go exactly as planned. After much confusion and unintended comedy, Eeyore's new home ends up not where he had intended it to be, but he is grateful for his friend's help nonetheless. Chapter 10. Christopher Robin's Expedition to the North Pole. In this final chapter, Christopher Robin organizes an expedition to discover the North Pole. He invites all his friends from the 100-acre wood to join him, and they set off on their adventure, each contributing in their own way. Pooh, Piglet, Rabbit, and Eeyore all bring their unique personalities to the journey, resulting in a fun and humorous adventure. During the expedition, there is some confusion about what exactly the North Pole is, but the group presses on with enthusiasm. Eventually, when Roo accidentally falls into the water, Pooh manages to save him by using a pole. Although this was not the North Pole they were looking for, The group declares the pole that saved Rue to be the North Pole. Christopher Robin, ever the thoughtful leader, marks the spot with a sign, and the expedition is declared a success. Like and subscribe to Bedtime Stories in 10 minutes.